Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. Join me as always, MAGA Jesse. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. We're going to be talking about how the MNGOP and the Republican representatives in the state house and the state senate are screwing up. They have the opportunity to be taking out all of the stuff that the DFL Trifecta has given us. Since the GOP has a shared majority in the House, they have the votes to be able to block it. We'll be talking about all of the details surrounding that. We'll talk about the Star Tribune, who is admitting that the cost of living in Minnesota is too high. And then we'll be talking about how Kendall Qualls has announced a new governor campaign, all of the details surrounding that. We're also joined by the insightful Gunnar Balstad from the Truth Expedition. So we have lots of good discussion to get into today. Oh, and I also see we got Rydog Tucker 91, Crucified 1993 in the comments. Nice to see you guys. We want to make sure that your comment is read. Drop a Rumble rant, and we'll jump right to it.
Gunnar, good to see you back in studio.
Yeah,
how you doing?
Super stoked. So glad to be here, provide some moral support, and of course, call out the deep state and all of the tyranny that's going on here in Minnesota. So,
I know.
thanks.
I hope we get
Glad
into
to be
some
here.
more national deep state stuff because you're really good at it, you know. And you're a co-host of the Truth Expedition show, and you got some big shows coming up.
Yeah, we got a few coming up. I'm stoked. We're going to be interviewing a couple people. There's a guy who is Mark Ludwig, who is championing some fathers' rights across the country. And then Sasha Latapova, of course. We're going to chat about all of the COVID catastrophes and what they have up their sleeve next. So it should be informative.
Right
Exciting.
on, right on. And running the dials is always Mr. Deep State himself. Dawson, how you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing good. It's refreshing to have somebody in the studio that shares gaming as a hobby with me, because Gunnar and I were yapping about the Switch 2.
Nintendo Switch 2, it should be exciting.
It's going to be dope.
Dawson, don't let me forget to talk to you about video production on gaming after the show, okay?
You got it.
All right. This episode is brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy home or sell home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com or check them out on Facebook or X for their top-notch meme game. Also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. We were talking before the show began in show prep. Yes, Brad Ganser, we do show prep. And I was like, what are we going to talk about today? The problem with doing a show twice a week is that you feel obligated. We have sponsors, we have an audience. You feel obligated to do a show. I don't know how people do a show every day. I think you got to be so full of shit and coming up with stuff to do a show every day, to be honest with you, because usually there's not enough material to go on. Plus, that has to be your full-time job. I mean, this is cumbersome enough for like a side gig. Hopefully this whole thing that we're building here grows. Who knows? We have no idea. And it can be more full-time, but it's just not, right? This isn't as big of a production as, let's say, the Daily Wire or Joe Rogan's show, right? Even Joe Rogan does this as a side gig, right?
Right.
That's a pretty good side gig, by the way. Was that $250,000 or $250 million for a side gig? That's a good side gig. So we were reading through some of the bills to look into something, and it hit me what needs to be talked about today, in the sense that this has been weighing on my heart. Okay, and I'm really I hope to share this podcast long and far, even if you're not in Minnesota. I think this is important because, especially with you, Gunnar, maybe we'll get into the national news, because I really think Republicans are failing us tremendously out there too. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen a mandate in my life. The closest mandate, and not for the greatest reasons, was 2004 when Bush beat Kerry, and it was on the idea of global war on terror and Iraq war, right? And it was like a mandate to continue on our foreign policy, which turns out to be a massive mistake, right, in hindsight. I was a stupid college student. What did I know back at that time? And then I signed up and went over there. So this is a mandate, even I would argue, further than what I saw in 2004. Okay? Actually, 2002 was the first midterm, or was the last midterm, where the party in charge kept a majority. Okay? It does not. The thinking in politics is you lose the president loses, his party loses in the midterms. It doesn't have to be that way. If there's a mandate and you do what you were asked to do, and I think they're blowing it in Washington, D.C. I don't know if we'll get to that topic today, but I think it's important, even if you're not from Minnesota, listen to this, because Minnesota is like a microcosm of what could be. We are not a blue state. This state hasn't voted for a Republican president since Richard Nixon in 1972, okay? So it's gone Democrat ever since then. The only state that voted Walter Mondale against Ronald Reagan. The only state. Now, Mondale was from Minnesota, but still voted the wrong way on that one. Okay? Attorney General, 50-year stretch, all Democrats. Republicans haven't won statewide in this state in 19 years. So when we talk about the problems with the Republican Party of Minnesota and the politicians that represent it, we're not talking about the New York Yankees. We're not talking about the LA Dodgers. We're not talking about a well-oiled machine. We are talking about the bottom tier of politics. An organization so dysfunctional and not being led by people that actually are doing what their people are asking them to do, that, you know what, you should be listening to people sounding the alarm. And that's what this show is going to be about, is sounding the alarm. And I know that, and this show is not Action for Liberty, okay? Erik Mortensen will bring on the president of Action for Liberty to give the viewpoint of Action for Liberty. Obviously, I founded Action for Liberty, and I'm in sync with Action for Liberty on this stuff. But take it as not just the show and what Mort's going to say and, you know, any other big talking heads. I know Roxanne Cowles has been saying this stuff, but a lot of the grassroots people out in the state that see a problem with it. And people come to us and they go, oh, you guys just want to rip on the Republican Party. You guys are fraudsters. You guys are scammers. You guys are just trying to enrich yourself. As if we don't actually believe in this stuff, like to our core, right? It's very simple. The only reason we're reflecting on the Republican Party is because we want it to be better. I learned this lesson when I was young. My dad said, if the coaches are yelling at you, that means that they care.
Right.
And if they stop doing it, that's where you got a problem. And that's what's going on right now. There's a two-party system in the United States, and I don't know if I want to take my political time and energy into developing a brand new party. When there's a perfectly capable party, mainstream party there for the taking. But they're screwing it up. These people are screwing up. Just so you can see, we are on board when they do the right things. Dawson, let's go ahead and play this. This is the A2. This is us when the Republicans were actually fighting up the Capitol. The first day of the legislative session, Republicans, you see how half the chamber is gone? It seems like forever ago. Democrats literally boycotted the Minnesota legislature. They didn't show up for weeks. And Republicans actually had a backbone. They lifted up their skirts, they grabbed their balls and did some work, and they took over when Steve Simon tried adjourning them without at least holding business of the Capitol. So watch this. This is our reaction. You can see we are pro Republicans doing the right thing. Go ahead and play this.
Okay, so there you go. You got Paul Anderson. Go to the roster. Here we go. Good. Never mind.
Wow. All right.
This is beautiful. Okay, here we go. Republicans with a backbone. I love it. All right, so you got Paul Anderson. Okay, just cut off. She said she was in Zoom, but cut off because I don't want to bother her.
Miska moves to rule the previous chair's adjournment out of order.
This is the oldest member, Paul Anderson. What is he saying?
73.
This is great.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, now let's elect a Speaker of the House.
Okay, that's good enough. So you can see, like, when they are doing the right thing, we are 100% on board. Do the right thing. We're there for you, okay? That's all we're asking. Do the things you say you're going to do. Now, here's what we're up against. Go pull up A1 graphic, Dawson. The Democrats, if you're not from Minnesota, the Democrats had a trifecta. Tim Walz, yes, that Tim Walz, that lying sack of crap that Kamala Harris picked as her running mate. This is what they gave us in Minnesota when they took over complete control of our government for the last 2 years. They spent $20 billion of a surplus that should have came back to us. $8,000 a household in Minnesota. We're going to bring up a reason why that's important in just a minute. They grew government by 36%. They instituted this carbon-free energy system by the year 2040. And we always talk about 2040, but we're supposed to be 80% there in just, 5 years from now? They gave us child transgender surgeries. We became a sanctuary state for those. They allow a baby born from a botched abortion to die after birth. They instituted pedophilia protections in the Human Rights Act, and they gave us gun control, universal background checks, and red flag laws. And I'm trying to think, and Jesse, you follow us even closer than that. I don't know a single one of those things that's a line in the sand thing for Republicans right now saying we won't pass this budget unless these things are out of it.
Right. In both cases, either the Republicans are not doing anything about it or they're pushing it along just as much as the Democrats. When it comes to the spending, they're just as bad as the Democrats because the Republican budget plan for this year is $66.6 billion. The Republicans don't have to be spending that. They know that they can cut things to pre-COVID spending levels. They have the votes to be able to do so, but the Republicans are refusing to act. And like you said, as you showed in that clip there, when the Republicans are standing up, fighting, and doing the right thing, we will be by their side 100% of the time. But when they are not fighting, we're going to call them out 100% of the time.
Yes, and they're spending our surplus money. And they're not even telling us we have a surplus. They're saying, oh, it's a deficit. No, there's no deficit right now. It is a surplus, and you're spending it. All right, this is from Action for Liberty's account. This is so great, and this is so true, because back when we were in the start of the session, the Republicans were like, yay, we killed the DFL Trifecta. This is A3, Dawson. We broke the DFL Trifecta. The GOP now is putting their hands up going, there's nothing we can do. Like we don't control any part of the three-legged stool, although they have literally 50% of the Minnesota House. If not a single Republican votes for a bill, they do not pass. Joining us on the phone is former Representative Erik Mortensen, President Action for Liberty. Mort, you're getting hounded by these politicians at the Capitol. They're acting like you're the problem. How are you the problem? How are they not the problem? What are they doing standing up for us?
I don't see them doing anything to stand up for us. And when I posted that on Facebook and I think Twitter the other day, it's kind of fun to reflect on what these clowns have said in the past and what they're saying now. Like, I know John Kosnick out of Lakeville, he's getting hammered for voting for a lot of these omnibus bills. And I'm in some threads with some of his constituents, and they're sending me what he's telling them. And he's saying kind of what you're saying. Oh, well, what can we do about it, guys? There's nothing we can do. We only have 1/2 of 1/3 of the government. But the Democrats are playing hardball. They actually use their power when they have it, even when the power is at a tie. But these Republicans refuse to lift a finger for any of these things. And when they first won the elections, all the way back in November, that's when they started touting, hey, we stopped the trifecta, we broke the trifecta. Niska, Nash, and DeMuth, all these caucus leaders are bragging themselves up and staking claim to victory. And that what they were claiming at the time was, well, we might not be able to go on offense, which was no surprise to hear Republicans say that because they never go on offense. But they said we can at least stop the bad stuff. But tell me one bad thing that these guys have actually stopped. I see them promoting things when you jack up Keith Ellison's budget by 10, 12%, and then claim that you're trying to beat up the Attorney General in committee when you're just giving him more money so he can go and file more lawsuits against the Trump administration. These guys are clowns.
I mean, they can literally stop every budget bill at this point.
Yeah.
They need Republican support.
Right. And when I talked, what people don't realize is we talk to people in the caucus. And what they're telling me is that they and their colleagues are scared to death of shutting down state government. Republicans in Minnesota are scared of shutting down government, but I'm pretty sure every campaign season they say, we need smaller government. It doesn't get much smaller than a shut down government, but they're so scared to death of it that, 40 to 46 of these guys, every omnibus bill, are voting for this junk. But if there's a silver lining, which is tough to see, it appears about 1/3 of the current House Republican caucus is actually voting pretty darn good. And I think some of them are getting increasingly frustrated that their colleagues say one thing, but then turn around and vote for these unconstitutional bills.
Yeah, and I notice in the Senate, there's a lot more courageous, I mean, quotations, courageous Republicans voting against it. The same bills that are basically passing the House, somehow the Republicans in the Senate, when they're in the minority, are fine being against it.
Yeah. Yep.
I look at this, okay, it's not just what's going on with the politicians at the Capitol. You and I talked on the Action for Liberty podcast behind the smoke screen about the state of affairs at the Republican Party in Minnesota, which seems to be barely hanging on, right? There are forces, Tom Emmer, that actually want the party to fail. They are literally like, you and I both know, right? Like direct sources, that Emmer's people are purposely trying to ruin the Republican Party in Minnesota, probably to let it fail on Alex's lap and so they can insert their own person. So as we stand here oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just want to say, I want to emphasize, because I think your casual political observer hearing that Tom Emmer wants the party to fail, they must be scratching their heads going, bullshit. Come on, guys. That can't be true. This isn't Jake and I speculating. These are facts. This is what people in the know are calling us and saying, holy cow, Tom Emmer is financially choking us out. Like, this is what's happening in the party. It's a fact.
Okay. They're clearly not doing well fundraising. They're clearly in disarray at party headquarters. We know that the Republican House, and I've got sources on this, say there's a lot of chaos inside the House caucus. And here we are in May, so we have, 18 months-ish until the next election. They are so poorly positioned to do anything effective in the next 2 years when they might be going against the wind anyhow because, generally midterms don't go favorable to the party that's in power. And I look at this and I go, oh, my God, Jesse, this is what we have to talk about. Because despite what some people say, Mort, you don't actually want the Republican Party to fail. You're not like Tom Emmer. You actually want it to be successful because it's a lot easier than creating a whole new party out of thin air or just, using these sub-political party groups. You want the Republican Party actually supporting its endorsed candidates and doing the right stuff and working on these elections and getting these people elected so that it actually matters in the end and we get conservative policies. And they seem to be weaker right now.
The only caveat I would add to that is it'd be great to see, frankly, any political party succeeding if the definition of succeeding is reducing the size of the damn government. Like, winning elections is not good enough. If they just go out and win elections and go vote like Democrats,
that's right.
I don't care about that success. So a party, Republicans, Democrats, whoever, I want to see smaller government. And I'm pretty sure that's what Republicans campaign on every year, but yet they never, ever deliver, whether it's in Minnesota or in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so I've got word that I think it was Monday, the Republican House was caucusing, and all they were discussing was essentially a letter you sent them and Action for Liberty. And basically Action for Liberty exposing their votes on omnibus bills.
Which is hilarious because, publicly, in a private caucus meeting, I totally believe that happened. Publicly, they say, no, irrelevant, ineffective. Nobody cares what those guys have to say. But yet behind the scenes and closed doors, it sounds like, and that's what I've heard too, is that they're talking about us and our emails and how to counteract our truthful messaging with their smoke and mirrors.
All right, Mort, before you leave, what should Republicans do right now? Like, let's just say, because the idea of this podcast is to sound the alarms, right? So let's say they're listening and they're willing to take directions. Let's be honest, the leadership's not going to, but let's imagine some bold new faces finally find their courage and start a coup against the leadership that's failing them. What should they do?
Well, it's funny you ask, because as I talk to people in the caucus, they're telling me, a lot of members are starting to realize that Action for Liberty was right. They should have never sat Brad Tabke. They never should have put all their eggs in the 40B basket. You got one election decided by 15 votes and another election decided by 30 points. So I think they're starting to see that they made some big tactical errors. But to me, the answer, and I put I'm hoping we can get a vote on this. I'm talking to some legislators. I would love to see them at least force a vote, file it on as an amendment to an omnibus bill, maybe even a committee, because maybe you could get it passed. I'd like to see something that says, hey, when the state government shuts down, let's treat government the same way government treated the private sector during COVID. And meaning, if the government is shut down, you don't pay an income tax, you don't pay a liquor tax, you don't pay a sales tax, you don't pay a gas tax. And we could at least get Democrats on record of being total hypocrites, and maybe some Republicans too, saying that, no, if the government shut down, we absolutely still need to steal, half of your earnings. But if you could get an amendment like that through, or at least get a vote on it, that would be interesting. And then have the balls just to shut down the government. In my view, a good long government shutdown, despite all of the scare tactics the media and the Democrats be pushing, I think most Minnesotans would go, you know what? Doesn't really affect my life. It doesn't matter to me. And if you could get something like that passed and all the political pressure on Tim Walz to sign that into law, or he'd be the biggest hypocrite on the planet, which he may be, all of a sudden, all this fear that Republicans have about shutting down the government really just dissipates, because more and more people every single day would go, man, my paycheck went up. The cost of everything went down. When the government shuts down, I freaking love it. Shut down the government. You'd have 3/4 of the state begging for the government to shut down every 2 years. So that's what I would do.
All right. Well, I appreciate it very much, Mort. If people want to find out more about Action for Liberty, they go to actionforliberty.com or check them out on Facebook or X.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. All right. I think this is important. That's actually a really good segue to this next topic, although I'm going to combine these two topics. The Star Tribune wrote a piece today, and it's not actually an editorial piece, which I would have thought. It's at least it's not
in their news section.
Well, it's not labeled as a opinion piece. I didn't think so. It's labeled under economy. It says White House 5K baby bonus would do little to offset costs of raising a kid in Minnesota. Fertility rates across the globe are dwindling, prompting governments like U.S. President Donald Trump administration to propose incentives for women to have children. There was a point after the birth of her second child when it didn't make sense for Lene Nelson Sees to keep working. I don't know, I probably pronounced that wrong. Her pay no longer kept up with childcare costs, so she left her Metro Transit operations job in early 2022 to instead stay home with her kids. Quote, there's a little bit of wistfulness and sadness to me that I'm not a stay-at-home mom by this deep, abiding desire to, said Minneapolis resident Nelson Sees, now 42, and a mother of 3 children, ages 7, 4, and 2. It's just the math doesn't work to be. The hefty cost of childcare is just one of the financial pressures families face. On average, accounting for just the basic, ready for this? It costs between $200,000 and $300,000 to raise a child in Minnesota. Now, the Star Tribune's got a cost breakdown. Scroll down there, Dawson. You're going to see this.
I can't.
Just refresh it and then scroll down. You got to beat the system. There you go. Oh, keep going. There you go. We did it.
Nice.
Here you go. I just give you a hack. No, we don't want. Just give us the damn news and sell some ads on the side.
There
Stop
is
making
a
us
website
subscribe.
that, probably multiple, that you can bypass these paywalls. So all you got to do is copy and paste that link into a paywall bypass as well. Another little trick for people if you don't want to pay for the Star Tribune, but you want to read what they're putting out anyway.
The very left-leaning Star Tribune, which has to admit that costs are going up in Minnesota. By the way, it's not just Minnesota. It's all over the country, but Minnesota is a higher rate. If you give childbirth by cesarean, it's $26,640. Vaginal delivery, $18,007. Parental leave, they're actually, giving you a cost for that, $20,000. Childcare and childcare centers. For an infant, $22,000. For a toddler, $25,000. For a preschool age, $35,000. And child care center total in the age of the growing child would be $83,000 essentially. And then they got breakdowns of child cares at family child care systems, which are a little cheaper. Then it's got transportation costs over the years, $54,700. Health insurance premiums, $52,380. Food, $37,350. Clothing, $4,374. And then they got to break down the totals, but their range, as I said before, $200,000 to $300,000. Now, I'm not telling you guys something you don't already know. Mm-hmm. I have 3 children. You have 3. Can I say?
Yeah, another on the
one
line.
in the one in the oven.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a serious conversation for people. Can we afford to have more children? I don't know how people can. It's insane.
Right.
Unless you're Elon Musk, with 12 children, 4 different women allegedly, and the world's wealthiest guy, maybe he can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a little facetious. There's a lot more people that can. But the average family is having trouble affording children, okay?
And
Cost of food and
this is an issue that the Republicans should be leading on. This
Yes.
is one that, when you think of the economy, Republicans always do more favorably than Democrats. That's been how it's been for decades here. So the Republicans should be leading on this issue, and they should be doing so by saying, here's a budget that returns spending to pre-COVID spending levels, or at the very least provides substantial cuts. Instead, they're pushing a budget that actually spends more than the Tim Walz budget. So the Republicans are totally dropping the ball. When the Star Tribune is to the right of the Republican Party of Minnesota, there's a problem, because the Republicans should be the ones saying this, not the leftist Star Tribune.
So the reason I think this goes so well with that first one is we're not talking about things that don't affect us, right? I mean, in some regards, and you and I feel the same way about the Israel-Gaza war, how much does it really affect us? Sad as that is to say. I want less people dying, but it doesn't. My life goes on the same. It sounds terrible. You get what I'm saying.
For sure.
This affects me. This affects my neighbors. This affects my family. It affects you. And politicians aren't doing jack shit about it. And I'm not just saying the Democrats. And this is what the show Truth Hurts means. You have to hear that it's not just the Democrats that are the problem. The Republicans are just as culpable here. They get in charge. No, they don't get in charge. They get half the House. Well, they're in charge in Washington, D.C., and they're doing jack shit about it. Right. Trump's arguing, why is Jerome Powell not lowering interest rates? I'm thinking maybe because that is their, and I don't like how they fight, but that's the one way they're fighting inflation costs. And in some regards, I don't like a check from the government, but they should probably give less taxes or reduce taxes, certainly for families, because it's so damn expensive. But we can't do that until you shrink the size and scope of government.
Yeah. Well,
So we're not talking about issues that don't matter. It's like when these guys cave and don't do this stuff, there is a deep cost, and this is the cost of big government. Sorry, Jess, go ahead.
And like you were saying, the Republicans are in charge in Washington, but also, the case can be made that the Republicans are in charge right now in Minnesota because they have the speakership. When you have the speakership, you get to decide which bills are going to be reaching the floor. And obviously, Damuth has been supporting all of these corrupt omnibus bills, as has Niska, as has Jim Nash, as has the majority of the House Republican caucus. And like you said, when the GOP is in the minority, they're voting against all of these omnibus bills. We're even seeing Jim Abler, Carla Nelson, they're voting to the right of a lot of these state House representatives. And those are two of the most left-wing Republican senators that are out there. So when you see that they are to the right of the majority of the state House Republican caucus, it shows you that there is a major problem going on. Like you're saying, the Republicans do have the power and they do have the authority to be able to block this stuff. And a government shutdown is not that scary. A government shutdown allows for negotiation. A government shutdown allows for the Republicans to use their leverage and say, we are not going to accept a budget like this. We want to propose this instead. So
because there is as Mort was saying, and as you were saying, there is a cost to a budget like this. When the Democrats spent $20 billion to grow our government by 36%, what that did is it took $8,000 out of our pocketbooks. Mm-hmm. Now, that along with the $5,000 from Trump, does that cover it? I don't know, Star Tribune. You tell us. It doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt.
Right.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, righty
but
says,
the problem is they keep growing government, and we can't have both things.
Right. In the comment section, we got Righty who says, when they're talking about how to bring down child care costs, they never bring up getting rid of all the rules and regulations. Used to be a lot more home daycares, which is a good point. There's all kinds of regulations that these politicians are sticking on to these daycares and other facilities just to make it tougher for these businesses to exist. And, things should be a lot less regulated so that because that is how you bring down the cost, because these businesses have way too much overhead thanks to the corrupt government.
Well, and that most people have to have dual incomes and need childcare because things are getting so expensive.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big compounding problem. Once again, the solution is in the Republican Party platform. We are sounding alarms because, listen, we agree with the Republican Party platform. Shrink government. Government is they always want to quote Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. Let's talk about Ronald Reagan. What was the quote? Government's not the solution to the problem. It is the problem, essentially, something like that.
Something
right?
like
It's one of the big quotes. You hear Ronald Reagan. You want to quote Ronald Reagan? You know, it's funny. The rhinos always quote the 11th commandment of Ronald Reagan, thou shalt not speak ill will of another Republican. But you want to ignore probably the more profound, important one, where government is the problem.
Yeah, and you know who didn't follow the 11th commandment? Our president, Donald Trump. And the Republican base loves that. We want to know who are the real ones, who are the phonies, who are the actual constitutionalists, who are the conservatives, and who are the anti-MAGA, anti-America First phonies who are globalists. And so obviously the establishment never wants to accept criticism. And they say that you shouldn't criticize other Republicans, but they don't even follow that advice, because what are they doing? They're always on the attack against Action for Liberty. They're always on the attack against liberty, pro-grassroots Republicans. So it shows that these people don't even believe it. They just want to have control, and they just want to dominate the Republican Party with a moderate, weak, liberal message rather than the conservative message that the base is demanding.
I've got a quick question about the Trump child tax credit or Trump child money thing, because it is on my radar. I'm looking to have a family soon. What is the whole deal with that? Is that 100% a thing?
Well, depending on your dependents, you can file on your taxes each year. So that's actually one of the things is we're a little short each year. We owe the man, and I loathe to do that. So one way we're going to offset that is to have another baby. So we'll be tax neutral this year. But so with the $5,000 proposal, if it really is, I doubt it's annual. It might be one time per child, something like this, that you're allowed to claim. But that could seriously offset your taxes and give you, in fact, a tax return. Will that help? Well, of course it will, especially with new families that will pay for a lot of quick out-of-pocket things, all the things you would need to start, a crib, a car seat, etc. And then, with daycare, with the birth rate going down for various reasons, then with what happens with undocumented immigrants, and especially here in Minnesota, throwing money at daycare daycares here are crowded. So I don't know what's going to happen if we alleviate some of that pressure. I think you could see a reduction in some of the costs. But either way, something has to be done. If we can't replenish our workforce, that's a huge issue.
Well, and the thing is, there are solutions here, and it's just less government, and there needs to be political will in it. Whether Trump actually passes this, which there might be the political might, it really comes down to the Republicans' agenda out there. They kind of like that stuff, Dawson, because they like divvying up money to certain constituencies.
Yeah.
But really what they should be doing is just reducing the tax burden up front.
Right.
And the only way they could do that is by reducing government, and they aren't willing to do that. They're growing government. They're increasing the Pentagon to $1 trillion.
Well, so
congrats, by the way, Dawson. Please do.
Well, there's no congrats. There's nothing's happened yet.
Not yet.
Nothing's happened just yet.
My follow-up question would be: how is this $5,000 thing different from Kamala's proposed, what was it, $6,000 tax credit? What does that mean?
No, probably nothing different, really. It's probably it's probably going to be a tax credit.
I
That's
see.
probably what they're going to do.
Okay, interesting.
Right. I'm fine with tax credits as long as you're not it's not refundable. Like if you don't pay in, you don't get more back.
Right.
Of course, then again, I always look at the long
And
term.
tax cuts should always come with spending cuts.
Yeah, and they should come with spending cuts. Let's pull up to A4. Let's go to the Minnesota House Republicans' unofficial spokesperson, Walter Hudson, because, he's the one that always sounds off, rah, go Team Red. He says, we have 1 week left at the Minnesota House, and things are likely to go off the rails. Is that because they're finally standing up the DFL Trifecta? No. Why? Because Democrats are fighting to fund illegal immigrant health care. Interesting you say that, which we're for getting rid of that. Is that your line in the sand? Are you willing to go? And just so you know, it's obviously something that needs to go, but it's not a big expenditure item in the end of the day. Like, you guys are growing government by like essentially they're keeping $14 billion of the new government in there. This is like, I think, a annualized couple $100 million plan. So while I still think that's something worth fighting over, that's only one of many different things. Pay seasonal workers to not work, drive research and development out of the state. It's a bold strategy, and you guys will probably take it up the ass. Just to be honest, this is the truth hurts. We're just going to tell you how it is. Now, in the same breath, Walter, go to the A5, wants to criticize Action for Liberty. A4L yearns for another Democrat trifecta. What on earth are you even talking about? You're such a lying politician at this point. It's their best fundraising environment. No, it's not. Not at all. Not one bit. You have no idea what you're talking about. They betray conservatives while pretending to be champions. Well, Walter's clearly not a conservative anymore. He's voting for unconstitutional omnibus bills that grow government. You can't be a conservative and vote for those things, right?
Right.
Like, your votes actually matter in the end. My retweeting them will get more engagement than they could get on their own, but I'm happy to expose their treachery. Well, I'm sorry, but maybe Action for Liberty doesn't live on X all day long like you. And maybe we have other platforms that are far greater reach, especially through emails, which is probably leaps and bounds more than what your reach is. So, and then he's talking about a tweet that says Minnesota Republicans are worthless. Appears Florida Republicans' spines are evaporating, and Lord knows the Republicans in D.C. are largely a joke. I think it's so important that we call this stuff out and sound the alarms. Unless you're, and Walter doesn't believe this, okay? He's actually quite a liar these days. He knows better. Action for Liberty does actually care about a conservative government. That is actually what we want. They're just the ones that are enabling the Democrat agenda. It's clear they're enabling the Democrat agenda.
Right.
If they're not, and go back, Dawson.
I mean, Walter is the one who is voting with the Democrats. He's
Correct.
the one who's voting with the Democrats for these omnibus bills and then says that Action for Liberty wants Democrats in control. No way. What we want to see is liberty conservatives in control.
Yes. Yes. We are against all the bills you're voting for. And a lot of your Republicans are voting against them, too. Just FYI. Look at Drew Roach's voting record. A lot better than yours, Walter Hudson.
Yep.
All right. Go back to the A1, Dawson, the graphic on the DFL Trifecta. And I'll show you exactly what we're against and what Walter Hudson is only saying he's against, but not doing for real. Because if he was against these things, then where's the action? You know, Walter.
Right. He says the Democrats are fighting for these things. Well, the Republicans should be fighting to take out all of these things here.
Right. Walter, you guys are the one that are spending the surplus. You don't even level with your constituents and tell them there's a surplus right now. Walter Hudson, is there a budget deficit right now in Minnesota? Is there? No. You know, well, you might not know the answer. I don't know if he's really a budget guy. There is not. There's actually like a $7 billion budget surplus. You don't tell anyone that, do you? Because you don't want them knowing your guy's proposal is going to spend that money. In fact, you pretty much have already spent it. Go back to that graphic. The second one, they grew government by 36%. You should be shrinking by 36%, but you're not doing that. You're basically cementing in a large part of that grown government. Where, and this is why we got on this topic today, we were reading the energy bill, the climate energy bill, which Walter voted for renewable energy, whatever that line item was. And I'm like, wait a second. Weren't we all outraged by this carbon free by 2040? Why isn't that in your bill, right? Where's the child transgender surgeries? Getting rid of that crap. The abortion after birth, pedophilia protection, gun control. Why aren't these the lines in the sand you will not cross? No budget passes unless these things happen. What are we doing here? Are we just trying to get you guys reelected? Well, that is the big con in politics. Vote for us. The Democrats are bad. Vote for us. We need to stop the Democrat trifecta. You stop the Democrat trifecta, and you're doing jack shit about it. So we're not coming on board with your strategy of getting you guys reelected. What's the point? You know?
Do you think this is one of those things where it's like, if these issues get fixed, then what do they have to run on next time?
I do think that's an issue. That's a great point, Dawson.
Because
I've alleged that's an issue sometimes in the pro-life movement. You know, if we really solve the abortion issue, would they really have anything to go against? I think on both sides on that one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
But they could also say we need to defend life. So, now that we've passed these things. But it's MCCL. This is from Senator Nathan Wiesenberg's own mouth. MCCL, Minnesota Concerned Citizens for Life, came into his office, their lobbyists, and said, we don't want you, introducing the life at conception bill. It should be their signature legislation. And they didn't want him to do it. So, yeah, far be it for me to criticize that some of these organizations really aren't in it for change. Find me where Action for Liberty is ever against a good bill, a bill that actually reduces government or expands freedom. Find me that. I'd be very interested in that one, because we're on board with that stuff.
Right.
What we're not on board with is unconstitutional almost bills that grow government. Have I beaten this to death? I mean, I'm
they
so
also
passionate
do this
about
thing.
this right now.
They play these games where they say, "Oh, let's take a vote on men and women's sports," and then, of course, it doesn't get passed. Why aren't they stuffing things like that into these omnibus bills and saying that we're not passing this bill unless you pass this along with it? But like you're saying, that they're refusing to use their leverage, and they're just getting totally. It's all about the next election, like we're saying. They just got to have more issues to run on, and they're just trying to do enough to pretend like they're fighting.
Also, did I see that? Did Walter say that the session is ending soon?
Yeah, it's done in a week.
How long is?
Oh wait, is it 2 weeks? What is it? Not a week.
When did it start?
It'll end on the 19th, right, of May.
When did it start?
January 14th. They adjourn the first Monday after the third Saturday.
These D-bags work for like 4 months out of the year and then just get to go hang out.
Yeah,
I'm in the wrong.
They don't even have to earn the money either. They just have to spend it. It's not like they have to do anything to bring that money in.
Apparently,
all they have to do is spend it.
Apparently, they don't even need to show up for half of it.
Right? And they still got paid.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy.
I know. Yep. And next year they work even less, which I would argue would be a great cost saving. I would double their pay if they show up less of the time.
Well, and the Senate,
be better
the
for us.
Senate also passed rules to allow the senators to be paid their per diem when they don't even show up. So even when they're staying in their own district and they're just going to call in their own votes, they still get the per diem thanks to the uniparty. And, of course, the House also allows people to be voting remotely and calling in their votes, which is ridiculous. You should have to be in person to be able to have your vote counted, in my opinion.
Mark Kroll says, campaign parade season starts soon. Get your booze and rotten tomatoes ready. That's funny. All right.
I reject that argument that it's mostly inaction because folks want to preserve the issue for the next election cycle. I think that people are generally more altruistic than that when they are in these roles and they're acting on their values. It seems more like it's just incompetence, pageantry, and the inability to go against the grain. It's like this self-importance of being part of the political process and government that allows folks to just continue on this conveyor belt of functioning government, not really understanding how crazy things have gotten. And so it's just the first of this year that undocumented immigrants are eligible for health care in Minnesota, or the immigration status is not an issue. So January 1 was the first, and that's just going to balloon as more and more folks start coming here to take advantage of that. Like there are so many little things that when changed and tweaked would have huge reverberations for Minnesota.
Well, and that's why I have such a hardline stance on this stuff, is because if you don't fix it now, it's just going to grow into this monster that you can't control.
Right.
And part of that monster are big programs that are ripe with fraud.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm sure the child care, I don't know the history at this point, I can't remember, but the history of the CCAP program, child care, what is it? Whatever, child care, health, whatever the CCAP program, a child care assistance program, probably started really small.
Right.
And now it's ballooned to a $500 million program.
Right.
It was ripe with fraud.
It was meant to take care of local community members, not import a bunch of issues, Right. So, my heart goes out to all of the people who are struggling in this way, but we can't import a financial burden.
Yeah. Well, I think long story short, how I started this whole show was, we do a show Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's interesting trying to find the topics, right? I know we got to do some more interviews, and we will, but I just think like at some point, I just have to really speak from the heart. This show is not going to be about rah Team Red.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Alpha News if you want that.
Right.
In fact, they're doing a disservice if they're not calling out this shit.
Right.
We are not going to change the state, and we're not going to change this country if we don't start calling out the screw-ups on center-right politics. If we're just focused on the Democrats, and everyone agrees here, Democrats are a problem. There's no solution coming from that camp. But if you're not willing to actually call out the problems on the Republican side, on center-right, then we're never going to fix these issues. And maybe you can't fix these issues. Maybe there's forces behind it that won't allow it to change. And I do think you're right about the fact that there is something to be said about hard to change the institutions. But I do wonder if we're on the cusp of changing some of this stuff, because Action for Liberty is very successful this year at mobilizing its people to get involved in the political process, which is why there's so much frustration with Action for Liberty, because they're growing in size. So maybe we're on the cusp of changing this stuff. It's like a resurgence of the Tea Party movement, which was not just against the Democrats. It was against the Republicans. Right. This is what Walter Hudson initially got involved in politics about. Is the Tea Party. Isn't that interesting? It's funny how things change.
Yeah.
This next segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Kendall Qualls running for governor, huh, Jesse?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull up the C1. People may have seen that he has, there's some news reporting out there that Kendall Qualls has filed. People can see for themselves on the campaign finance board right there that Qualls has filed with the CFB as a governor campaign. Dawson, go ahead and click officers and contact information. Obviously, it's pretty bare as of right now. No reports or anything, but, it's interesting. We can see here that he's got, someone listed from Hudson, Wisconsin as his deputy treasurer, and same thing with his treasurer. So probably nothing off about that. I just thought it was interesting that he doesn't have people from Minnesota completely running his campaign. And Dawson, if we could pull up the C2, we could check out an article that Action for Liberty had previously written on Kendall Qualls during the previous campaign that he was running for governor. So obviously titled, "Will the real Kendall Qualls please stand up?"
Oh, I wrote that one.
Yep. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit, Dawson. I'm going to pull it up on my end here, too.
I loved showing those politicians en masse because, if it's like one or something like that, you got fortunate. But like when you find so many images of them en masse, it means like you were not on our side in COVID.
Right. And, Qualls was out there campaigning with a mask on as a Republican.
Well, go back up. Yeah. Wasn't it? Oh, was he? This is like during his campaign. Look how many are outside.
He was running for when he was running for Congress was when he was wearing the mask.
Oh, yeah. But
he ran against Dean Phillips previously.
And look how many are outside, too.
Yeah.
That one's got like a scoreboard. What's he at? Like a ball game? Coon Rapids looks like in the background. Top right. But yeah, like outside, sunny days.
I think the top right's an American flag one.
And then look, listen, I haven't seen this. You put together this show prep. I haven't seen this since I probably wrote it in 2022. This is a flyer from them. This is what Kendall Qualls would do with Tim Walz' mask mandate. And it acts like he's going to burn it.
Yeah.
This is just the fraudulence of how fraudulent these politicians are. Like, no, you won't. You're a mask wearer. Okay? Tell us about the science, but don't pretend like you're not that. Oh, God, these politicians.
Yep. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit there, Dawson. So the mailers, literature, and emails from Kendall Qualls' campaign sounds great. It gives the perception that Qualls is an outsider who is willing to fight against Tim Walz, mask mandates, and fraudulent elections. But the real Kendall Qualls appears to be different than what is being spoon-fed to us. When Kendall got in the race, we called him up and asked him to sign the Never Again pledge. Our supporters care deeply that a governor can never unilaterally shut down our state and make himself a king. But Qualls refused to sign the pledge, telling us that he, quote, doesn't sign pledges. If he did, he'd have to sign one every day. That's a ridiculous claim, since there are not a lot of conservative pledges that are being floating around Minnesota. Regardless, Kendall was not being honest. In his 2020 campaign, he signed a pledge and put it right up on his website. Go ahead and scroll down there, Dawson. People can see that he's made a pledge himself. Scroll down a little more. Kendall has now changed his tune and says he doesn't sign pledges to third-party organizations, but the Never Again pledge clearly states that the pledge is made to Minnesota citizens. In fact, everyone would be just as happy if he copied the language and put it on his own website. We just want to see proof that he is going to make the Never Again bill a top priority. In a recent debate, Kendall trashed Action for Liberty supporters because they wanted to see him sign the public pledge. Then he stated that allowing a governor to continue having emergency powers. Watch the video. So let's go ahead and play that video right there, Dawson.
So the Never Again bill, no, I did not sign it, and here's the reason why. I gave an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, as a second lieutenant. I was 19 years old. My pledge is to the Constitution and to you. I'm not outsourcing my trust and my values to a third party. I don't know these guys. But here's what I can tell you. On our website, you'll see it. Emergency powers, 30 days for the governor. Any extension beyond that needs to be approved by 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. That's accountability, that's leadership, and that's action. Okay, guys, so I want to end that there. So is there about accountability? I'm not outsourcing my trust and values to a third party. I don't know anything about this, guys.
We really trust you. Running for the state executive position, the top executive in the state. Oh, I'll only keep him for 30 days, and no restrictions on those 30 days too. You notice how that, like, one of the key things about the Never Again bill is there's a Bill of Rights. You can't actually infringe on those Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm. It's such a joke.
Right.
Ahead, sorry.
It's crazy, because he's saying there that he still thinks that the governor should be able to unilaterally shut down our state, shut down churches, shut down businesses, shut down schools by himself without the legislature for 30 days, and then the legislature can intervene. It's totally ridiculous. But continuing on with the article, he says on his website, he has very vague language on what specifically he would do about emergency powers. And since we called him out on his rhetoric, he has made 3 changes to his website, all 3 made within just days of one another. So as you can see, he doesn't even know what his position on emergency powers is. He's changing his position day to day. The first time he says, have legislators send me a bill that severely restricts emergency powers of the governor. I will be the first governor in history who says, I'm returning power to you, the people. So extremely vague there. Second one, have legislators send me a bill that severely restricts emergency powers of the governor. I will be the first governor in history who says I am returning the power to you, the people. 30-day emergency powers only. Any extensions are 30-day increments, and each 30-day extension requires approval of 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And then that wasn't good enough either, so he says, we'll demand that the legislature send a bill to my desk to severely limit the governor emergency powers. Never again will we allow the governor to have unilateral power to shut down your business or force your family to make a choice choosing between health freedom or listening to the demands of some government bureaucrat. We need to severely limit emergency powers. Governor Walz took advantage of the situation, and Minnesotans were penalized for it. That will stop. When in reality, Qualls could never figure out what the right answer was, which is that a governor shouldn't have unilateral emergency powers at all. That was the position all along, and it's too bad that Kendall Qualls tried to beat around it and try to find some political answer when the answer was right in front of him. The real Kendall Qualls doesn't appear to know what he wants, but that doesn't stop him from throwing around a bunch of buzzwords to try to sound hardcore. Look at his email response to us that was put out at the time. It was titled, Never Again. Never again. That's what I believe in when it comes to the governor's emergency powers being unilaterally imposed on Minnesotans. Never again should the governor be able to cherry pick who stays open and which businesses are forced to close. Never again, yada, yada, yada. So he's using the never again language, but if only he actually supported what the Never Again bill would truly do, because he still wants to have some of that authority himself. And, he might try to argue that, I'd never use it like Tim Walz did. Well, why do you want that authority then? Because if you don't want that authority, you and nobody else should be able to shut down our state for a single second. And nonetheless, should it be held under the control of one person. So even with his mailers and lit pieces sounding hardcore, last month he sent a mailer to delegates burning Oh, the Tim Walz mask mandate. This hard-hitting mailer made him look like the guy to end the mandates. As you can see there, he's burning the mask, even though you can find lots of pictures of him wearing a mask. But the real Kendall Qualls was obeying Walz's mandate in 2020 and 2021. Look at his Twitter feed. It's full of masked, virtue-signaling images of Kendall. He even wore a mask outside many of his...
They're socially distanced, too. Look at that. That is so funny.
So, right, it's obviously a virtue signal to the woke mob. Joe Rogan said it best, that the best people who still wear masks outside, quote, it's like the Democrats' MAGA hat, and that's exactly what it is. Kendall's woke friends will appreciate that he both masks and social distances himself outside. If he had gotten a fourth booster shot, he would have fit right into the DFL state convention. Kendall's picture with a burning mask is a blatant deception to liberty lovers like you and me. How can we trust that he'll fight mask mandates as governor when he happily obliged by them? So don't let Kendall's self-annoyed outsider status fool you. When you listen to him speak, he echoes establishment talking points about the incredibly popular Never Again bill. We debunk those lies in this article. When you see his mailers, you know that he is promising things that he has no intention of delivering on. He has become an insider Republican and has already learned how to lose elections. In 2020, he lost a recently Republican congressional seat by 11.3%. And if people go and watch that debate he had with Dean Phillips, he is a joke. This guy is a choke artist. This guy does not have the guts. He is going to drop the ball. And if we thought Tim Walz was bad, just wait until you see Kendall, because Kendall's not much better. So, Dawson, let's go ahead and let me see which article we want to hit next here.
You know, I remember writing this, and up until this point, somewhere in like April, I was amicable to him. I thought, okay, maybe. I had no big issue against him. I was very impressed, you know, but I was fine. Like, and then he came out, it just became so obvious how, you know, unserious he was about the Never Again bill and COVID.
Right.
Like,
the Revolutionary War was 250 years ago, right? So we all understand the importance of the Second Amendment to this day. We didn't live through that, but we understand the importance of the Second Amendment. We lived through COVID. We saw what happened. In my opinion, people are always going to be wiser than the government. So if the people are afraid, they don't want to go to church because they're afraid they're going to get sick or something, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to go. They're going to use their best judgment.
Mm-hmm.
The state should not be nannying us in this way. And they failed it so horribly last time that any indication or any entertaining of this type of government authority should be absolutely discredited.
Yeah, definitely. And I see Billy22 says, at a campaign event in Thief River Falls in 2022, Kendall told a Republican crowd that he would not move to limit a governor's emergency powers. So that shouldn't be surprising to anyone. Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the C3, because actually Kendall Qualls said one time that he would sign the Never Again pledge and that he would be happy to look into it and whatnot. So let's pull up the C3. People can see in this video for themselves that Kendall Qualls was completely game to it, and go ahead and start from the beginning.
It's important that the shit gets turned around, especially everything going, like the riots, everything going crazy. And I mean, I live in Southwest St. Paul, so I see it, you know, quite a bit. I did have one question for you, and it's been asked to all the other governor's candidates in this race, and that's, if you're committed to protecting the citizens of Minnesota, making sure that our rights are being protected, would you be willing to sign the Never Again pledge to pass the Never Again bill when you're in office, so we can't have governors of any party taking advantage of us and using their unilateral powers to strip us of our rights and pressure our economy? Should have never happened in the first place. Never should have happened in the first place, right? So would you sign the pledge? Absolutely, fantastic. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, 2 of the candidates have signed it, and 3 of them have not. So we would appreciate if you would sign that pledge for us.
I'm going to read here's the scenario around this. I can read the details, but this is not a get shot. We are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and it's not for elected officials. Exactly, and it's really as simple as putting your name to it and saying, if I support this, I get it. I'm there. I get it. Yeah. Here's the thing: we need to trust the people to manage their own lives. Yes, better than the government can manage their lives. 100%. So we can, if you want, we can get it over to your office. We can hand it over to you. Our website will be live here in the next few days.
Okay. Yeah, we'll reach out.
I've already.
Yeah, that's good right there.
And it sounds like he didn't have his talking point of I don't sign pledges.
As of then, he said, Absolutely. He would sign on to it. And yeah, I got to look at the details of the language, but nothing about that I don't sign pledges, right? His
Well, I
argument
took
was,
an oath of office to the
yeah.
United States Constitution. I hate
Right,
it.
so-
I hate it when people do that card. It's like, oh, God.
Right. So,
I've seen a lot of
it's,
people that have taken that oath that have been lying sacks of shit as
Yeah.
politicians.
Right, definitely. And so we have to wonder, okay, he didn't have his talking points in line there. Who is he controlled by? Let's go ahead and look at the C4. And we can see that Kendall Qualls is actually being controlled by Big Pharma. And one of his major donors that was running his, giving lots of money to his previous campaign. So as you can see from the title, Meet Insider Kendall Qualls' Shady Support Network. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit there, Dawson. The support network of Kendall Qualls makes us question.
Do you see the scorn you get when you come out against her signature legislation?
Yeah.
I'm just like, holy crap, we wrote a lot of articles at that point. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so his who this self-labeled outsider candidate really is. He was more likely to be bought off and paid for by D.C. insiders, the establishment, and pharmaceutical companies. The draft Kendall Qualls committee was started by D.C. consultants looking to sink their teeth into Minnesota's gubernatorial race. Out of the $77,786 raised in 2021, $75,000 came from one mega donor, David Franchuk. Franchuk kicked off the effort to prop up Kendall Qualls in September of 2021. The committee took $50,000 to form, then later acquired another $25,000 from Franchuk. This money was paid to D.C. lobbyists and special interests who structured the fake draft effort, as you can see from the campaign finance filing below. And right, obviously, it's a fake draft campaign. That's all just done to be able to create some momentum, be able to get some buzz, be able to get the media attention. But of course, Kendall Qualls probably knew all along that he was going to be running for governor. Though the group is supposedly headquartered in St. Paul, the numbers provided to the campaign finance board had a Washington, D.C. area code. You'll also notice that the bank used to hold Franchuk's special interest money is based in Virginia. So who is this guy and why is he paying D.C. consultants to prop up Kendall Qualls? He's a commercial investor who spent big money on building throughout the Twin City metro. Most notably, he funded several healthcare and pharmaceutical projects. Among his projects listed on his website are Stellis Health, Albertville, Fairview Ridge Specialty Care Center, St. Francis Hospital, Fairview Ridge Specialty Care Center, Health Partners Neurosciences Specialty Center, among a dozen of healthcare-focused groups. He clearly has an interest in the healthcare industry. It makes sense why he would have an interest in Kendall Qualls. Though he regularly talks about his business experience, you'll rarely hear Kendall Qualls utter a word with the fact that he was a healthcare executive for Johnson & Johnson, one of the major COVID-19 vaccine producers in the United States. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit there, Dawson. It's underlined within there. So as you can see, right there it says that he worked for companies such as Johnson & Johnson. I wonder why Kendall Qualls didn't want people to know that while he was running. Yeah. In fact, Kendall Qualls was endorsed by Johnson & Johnson's former worldwide chair of its pharmaceutical arm, Robert Savage. This possibly explains why Kendall Qualls is so weak on emergency powers and health freedom. While you and I were locked in our homes and threatened with mask and vaccine mandates, Kendall's friends were making a big, fat profit. There is nothing grassroots or outsider about the Kendall Qualls campaign. It's just another insider candidate masquerading as a conservative with no intention of changing the dynamics of the political environment that is failing us. So as we can see, Kendall Qualls is going to be the establishment candidate going into this governor race. I think that it's pretty obvious that the rhinos are all going to consolidate behind him. We'll see if Scott Jensen wants to get in too, because that could make things interesting. But let's also pull up the C5, because Kendall Qualls does not respect the endorsement process, the Republican process, where you get to be able to be involved as a local delegate and make your voice heard at the endorsing convention. As you can see, Kendall Qualls spits in the face of the delegates who attended the GOP state convention because he instead decided to back Joe Frazier. And for those who were at the state convention, you might remember that Kendall Qualls was the one who went up on stage with Joe Frazier to prove that Joe Frazier had black friends to go against Royce White. It was, everybody could see through exactly what was going on. Yep. Anybody can correct me if they think I'm wrong, but it was so obvious that they were trying to say...
That's objective. That's very objective what you just said.
I'm saying in my mind that was clear.
For sure.
And I think to everybody it was clear, because Kendall Qualls wasn't up there because Kendall Qualls is some great speaker who can rally the crowd. No, Kendall Qualls was up there so that he could go against, because they thought it was a strategic benefit in going against Royce White. It didn't seem to end up working out, and a lot of people saw right through the tactic. So go ahead and go back to the article. Last week, former gubernatorial candidate Kendall Qualls announced that he endorsed Joe Frazier for U.S. Senate. Qualls is a failed Republican congressional and gubernatorial candidate. In May, the Republican Party chose to endorse NBA player Royce White over Joe Frazier. Qualls made this endorsement of establishment pick Joe Frazier despite his previous statements defending the Republican endorsement. You know, when he was running for governor before, he said, I'm going to abide by the endorsement. Some people were wondering if that was actually going to be the case after he lost to Scott Jensen. And also, Kendall Qualls was being extremely dishonest and evasive about who his lieutenant governor was going to be when he ran for governor last time. A lot of people were saying it's going to be Michelle Tafoya, which he was denying because she's pro-choice, pro-abortion. But all indicators were seeming to point that Kendall Qualls was going to select her to be his lieutenant governor, and he wasn't going to tell anybody who he was going to select until after the convention. I mean, what kind of person does that? He doesn't want to be straight up with even the delegates, because then the delegates might not choose to endorse him. But ultimately, he did get behind Scott Jensen. But in the case for the U.S. Senate race, Qualls was not respectful of the endorsement and thought that the delegates somehow got it wrong. So honoring the decision of Republican delegates is important to primary voters. In a majority of races, the endorsed candidate will win the primary. The process helps consolidate early support so that the base can focus on the general election. To break with this tradition is a slap in the face to the thousands of hardworking Minnesota Republican activists across the state who attend these conventions. As you can see in the post below, Joe Frazier put out this where he says, Michelle Benson, Paul Gazelka, and Kendall Qualls are all endorsing me. I don't know if that even helped out his campaign. If anything, people saw it. Paul Gazelka's endorsing you. Michelle Benson's endorsing you. Kendall Qualls is endorsing you. Get me away from that guy, because that guy can't be any good. And Joe Frazier was, just an unlikable guy who had zero personality.
Right.
He was, yelling to delegates. He was a big-time neocon. He was probably the dream opponent for Royce White, because you couldn't have put together a phonier he/him than Joe Frazier.
Let's stop right there. Funny, that is true, because he had he/him pronouns on his LinkedIn. Let's stop there. This is the thing that gets me. Joe Frazier and Kendall Qualls seem the same person. They seem like this milquetoast yes man to the establishment. And by establishment, I don't know what I mean by this. I don't know if it's Tom Emmer, right? The establishment has different camps. But people are pushing these guys, and they're milquetoast. They're not attractive to the average voter. They're not going to motivate the base. I'm not like saying, hey, Royce White's the answer. Right. I'm just saying that this doesn't work. Right. It clearly doesn't work. No one's getting inspired by these people. Joe Frazier couldn't even win in the primary. Kendall Qualls was close to winning the endorsement, but he didn't beat Scott Jensen, who's a chameleon when it comes to politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that went like 7 rounds or something crazy, right?
Like, it's hard for me because it's obvious that Kendall seems to be somewhat of an empty suit in the sense that you see the evidence with the emergency powers, just change on the fly. Oh, he's not really principled in not signing pledges. It's once he realized, I don't want to sign a pledge that actually has teeth, right?
Right.
He's going to have your typical milquetoast political talking points. But even if you get past all that stuff, who thinks this guy's electable? That's what's confusing to me. I don't think he inspires people. Trump flipped the script on how politics works because, boy, he really inspires the base.
Right.
Yeah.
Kendall's not inspiring people. I don't understand. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, because, the establishment doesn't always put the most, I'm trying to think of a really good example here. It's slipped my mind. But you could find someone in the establishment that would inspire a faction of the base, even if it's deceitful, right?
J.D. Vance.
Maybe, I don't know how much JD was part of the establishment before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a good example here. It slipped my mind, but certainly you could figure this out, right?
Bachman. Not the best.
Hard to
either.
call Bachman an establishment.
I know, right?
But you know what I'm saying?
That's what I was thinking.
Some people that actually have some attractiveness in, politics, like in electoral politics, and I just don't see it. That's what I don't understand about him. Right. I mean, obviously they think he's got a resume, and He's a yes man. That's what he is. He's a yes man for their special needs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to try to trick enough of us into believing that he is conservative. And you saw it in the last run, and they'll probably learn some lessons and try it again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not like big, stiff competition yet. There really isn't.
Right,
But-
yeah. The only people that are running right now is him, Phil Parrish, and Brad Kohler. And then there's a guy named Jeff Johnson that's going to be running the primary. Not the Jeff Johnson, a different Jeff Johnson. And then also Kendall Qualls is going to have to get over the fact that his wife has some crazy articles out there about him. So, Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the C6. This is an article titled, How to Respect Your Husband When He's a Jerk, written by Sheila Qualls, Kendall Qualls' wife. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit. There's just a part I want to read here. What if your husband is a jerk? Even every husband does jerky things every now and then. I'm not just talking about jerks who are physically or emotionally abusive. I'm talking about a man whose behavior makes you cray-cray. A man who makes decisions and does stuff you don't respect. Maybe you're married to a guy who's occasionally like that. Maybe you're married to a guy who's like that most of the time. A guy who makes it tough to respect him because he's a jerk. My husband is a nice guy, but respect has never come easy. But don't get me wrong, he's not perfect. There's been plenty of days in our 32-year marriage when I've wanted to run away and never come back. I've learned about something I don't like admitting in my early marriage. My problem with respect is about me no matter... Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. I think that gives people a taste of what
really weird thing for someone to write.
What we're in for.
Like, let's just listen. Marriage is a tough thing. Okay, let's just put it that way. But if your husband's running for political office, how is this thing still on the internet? I don't even understand that.
Yeah,
like that has to be part of the conversation. It's not like we're digging into like we went into their house, broke and entered, and found a journal entry. Like, we're finding something on the public. What is the website here? Pathos? What's Pathos?
Right. Yep. Pathos.
I haven't heard that in a while. What is Pathos? Wasn't that like a...
It looks like it has something to do with religion. Maybe it's like a series of religious blogs or something.
Something like that.
So June 12th, Governor Walz is going to have to go in front of some House committee and testify to the sanctuary status of Minnesota. I think that will be a good time, if anything, to have some potential governor candidates start to put a wedge in the policy here. I think that's going to be, hopefully Walz just gets hammered June 12th. But who's your ideal gubernatorial candidate?
It has to be, okay, let's talk about Trump. We'll get to the other articles.
Mm-hmm.
What did Trump do well? Okay, now he already had fame, right? Trump probably was the most famous person to enter the presidential stage, right? Like Reagan was a known name, but Trump was huge. Trump comes on stage, and it's not just the name. Bloomberg had the name, and Bloomberg definitely had the money. Trump went hard on an issue that was really core to the base, and that was immigration. And people believed him. They believed he was going to do something about it. And to be honest with you, I can criticize a lot of things in this current term. That's not one of them. He's done a good job on the border. Mm-hmm. And then what a great messaging, make America great again, that gets into the soul of the base, right?
Right.
So the person has to be able to deliver a message like that authentically, okay? Now, they don't need to have goofy yellow hair and orange skin and engage in mean tweets all day. They don't have to do that, but they have to be at the level of Trump to actually deliver an authentic message. Because when Trump delivers that message, people believe him. Mm-hmm. And there are people, and there's great people that Minnesota offers that could do this. Now, will they run? I don't know. That's the tough part. The people that typically run for this position, they're not those kind of people. You know, that's the big thing about Trump is he didn't need it. Well, I know, but there is an ego involved with these guys. But he didn't need it. And the things that he had to go through personally to run for president, it does make you think that Trump probably authentically cared about this stuff.
Right.
He does come across very genuine from what I've heard from people that have personally interacted with him. I mean, even Bill Maher had to admit that was an interesting admission.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see in Minnesota. And if there's some celebrityness attached to it, you know, you hear like Matt Burke.
Lindell.
Lindell.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I don't know about that one, but
someone was telling me about how he totally let a woman rot in jail over some of the election stuff that he did and then never Like, he had someone else take the fall for something, is what I heard. So obviously that doesn't sound ideal.
Well, I don't know anything about that. I'm just saying
I don't either. I'll have to look
Lindell's widely regarded, and he seems like a perfectly great guy, but is regarded as kind of cuckoo, and that's probably not good. They say there's no bad press. There's bad press. There is bad press, because you already painted in a certain way. But I'm thinking like Chad Greenway. I think his name was brought up 4 years ago, as a potential guy. Even like Michelle Tafoya, which I don't know the vast of her views. I know she's pro-choice, which I'm not on board with, so that's a problem. But there's some celebrity status there. If that person has some celebrity status and you match that with authenticity, that'd be great. Now, they don't have to be celebrity. They could be like someone from the business world. Someone that I know a lot of very successful businessmen and businesswomen who have built from scratch, lead companies with hundreds of employees. That would be a great executive. Mm-hmm. As long as they can get out there and go hard on an issue that's important to the base and say with authenticity, I think they could, especially at the governor level, emerge onto the scene and be a big contender. And that's more than, because that's the problem that Kendall has, okay? I'm not saying he's got the greatest resume in the planet, but it's decent, it's good enough, right? I don't know much about his military service. Sounds like he was an officer at one point. The issue is he's not authentic. No one's believing him on you're not inspiring the base, and that's what needs to happen. Billy 22, it's Colorado County Clerk Tina Peters, and Lindell has been helping with her legal fees. I thought Tina Peters was going to get commuted by Trump. I thought I read something like that. Maybe not. All right, sorry. Continue on, Jesse.
Yeah, Dawson, go ahead and pull up the C7. We can continue on with some more of these Sheila Qualls articles because these are nuts. And, they got used against him a little bit in the governor campaign, but this stuff wasn't out there as much as it could have been. So this title is Why I'm Glad I'm Married to My Third Husband.
Good God.
The key to making your marriage...
She's been married 33 years, and this was her third husband?
Get ready. The key to making your marriage work is understanding you won't be married to the same guy your whole life. I've been married to 3. I've been married only once, but in this marriage, I've been married to 3 different men. My husband has changed over our 33-year marriage. The man I married is not the man I married to today. Shortly after we married, I thought for sure I'd gone home with the wrong guy. He looked like the same guy. His name was on the marriage license, but he was different, and not a good kind of different. He changed, and he's changed many times over our 33-year marriage. You might be in a hard place in your marriage right now, ready to throw in the towel. Here's one thing you should know about becoming another divorce statistic. No matter how hard your marriage seems right now, it will change. You make your marriage work by falling in love with the same man again and again throughout the different stages of marriage. When people hand out marriage advice, they'll leave out this key piece of information when it comes to longevity. The man you married won't be the same in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. In successful marriages, couples fall in love over and over again with the same person.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like, hold on, it gets a little better.
All right.
I felt like I'd been duped. Shortly after saying I do, I felt like I'd been duped. He was not the man I thought he was. He was selfish and inconsiderate. I was miserable. I considered divorce, but was too embarrassed to pursue it. I was glad when it was over. I welcomed my number 2. Number 2 is the father of my children, but he was worse than the first guy. The guy made number 1 look good. I thought that I knew what selfish looked like. Kids made marriage even harder, but they were also the thing that held us together. We had to learn how to put our stuff aside to take care of each other's needs. As we trekked through parenting, I grew more miserable. His career felt like a mistress. He spent more time with work than he did with me. And it goes on and on like that.
No, but hold on. I think I feel this is unfair criticism here. It is interesting to see this stuff just out there in the open, but where's man number 3? Because I do think, just like in the Christian tradition, you're judged by who you show up as, at the pearl gates.
Right. No, and
I love number 1 and number 2.
Sure, number 3 does things I don't like, but if I hadn't married the other 2 guys, I wouldn't appreciate this one. Was a hard yes, but I'm glad I stuck it out. Yes. And I'm just saying that it's strange that this stuff is out there. What kind of woman would be putting this stuff out there about her husband? Would either of you want your wives writing articles like this?
Hell no.
No,
okay,
tricky,
so it's not as normal as you're trying to make it out to be, Jake.
I know, but it is in some regards kind of a lovely thing in the sense that marriage is tricky.
She's profiting off of this. I mean, scroll to the bottom. She's trying to be a dating coach for people. And
Wait,
whatnot.
really?
Yeah, scroll to the bottom.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah. So that's where part of this
hold on,
is
what
like
is-
Maybe it's in the other, or scroll up right there.
Oh no, she's a coach.
you almost
she
have to
still does this?
glamorize your issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Right,
So if
and
anything,
Scroll
that
up
is
a little bit. Yeah,
weird.
apply for private coaching with Sheila, all that stuff. Need skills to build intimacy? Go to Sheila Qualls.
Yeah, that's a little.
Is this a criticism of the guy though? This seems like a mom has a weird side hustle job talking to other moms.
Right, and I'm just saying what's strange about it is the mention of him and the talk about him and some of these other things. Let's see here. Maybe we can go down to.
What do you think?
I mean, look,
we got an unmarried man over here.
Right.
So
No.
I am
mean,
interested.
look, I've been married for a decade, and we've certainly evolved in good ways. But I think that, am I the same man that I was when I married my wife? For sure. I think she knows that. But, not to like say that, not to try to insert something that's not there. I hope the guy has a happy home life. I hope his wife is successful in whatever gig this is. But nonetheless, it's difficult to have this content out there about a potential candidate. The first article you had up, I think, was a little more damning. The guy is changing a little bit. Well, maybe he does. I don't know.
It doesn't sound as
If
bad as the
anything,
first
it
one.
says like, well, do you want someone who is willing to evolve with the issues? Sure. Or do you want someone who doesn't have a moral standing? If that's what she's more saying, then yeah, maybe this guy is unpalatable and unfit, but I don't know. I think.
Well, it doesn't sound like that because it's a journey, right? So it's like 1 and 2 are bad, and listen, people change, and sometimes for the good. So I don't know if I'm as critical on that. It does seem a little,
and let's talk.
Does seem a little goofy to have that out there and be a coach when you're,
If your husband's
let's talk about that journey a little bit. Dawson, go ahead and pull up the C8, and we can see exactly, how did their marriage get to be so good?
Just so people understand, like, this is out there in public. So I'm not forming an opinion. I haven't even looked at this stuff. So Jesse's bringing it up. So I think it's fair to actually bring this up.
And how
if
about
anyone
this?
Has an issue with it.
She wrote an article, 2 ways online dating improved my marriage.
But let's read through this stuff because I think she's using a trick to catch people's attention.
It's so obvious.
Clearly that second one was. She was not married 2 times before. That made sense. So let's read through this. Let's make sure we get the right context.
Keep in mind,
because that is a shocking headline there.
Right. When looking for ways to improve my marriage, online dating made me appreciate my husband and want to keep on working on our marriage even when things seem tough. I didn't actually sign up and pay for the service to improve my marriage. I checked out a site because a single friend who was using one was having a hard time finding a match. She discovered to no surprise that some people lie on their profile. She received rude propositions and requests, and she reads a lot of profiles that made her creep detector go off. I'm not knocking online dating sites. They work for a lot of people, and they're really popular. I dated in the olden days when the only way to meet someone was via social setting or personal ads. Times have changed, but one thing hasn't. There's no perfect man, no matter what the profile says. No matter what the profile says, chances are that you...
Wait, I dated in the olden days when the only way to meet someone was via social setting or personal ads. What am I missing?
I would guess that means you're personally personally calling them or something.
Personal ads sounds like
I think classifieds.
Yeah.
People didn't. That was
weird.
That's not.
Haven't you ever seen?
That's prostitution there.
Haven't you ever seen the old VHS dating video profiles where they'd be like, "Hi, my name's Jack. I really like doing this and this." And
I wonder if that's what she's referring to.
That would be very, very old. But
that rarely anyone did that.
Right, but anyway, she just goes on to basically say, appreciate what you have, yada, 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 but it never really explains. Why the hell were you on a dating website when you're married?
She said, she said her friend was.
That makes a lot of sense because, usually when you hear, when a married woman hears about her friend on a dating website, usually that married woman says, well, I should also check out that dating website, shouldn't I?
Leave it to
I don't know. If I had a single guy that was like, I got to check out the I would be there too. I'd be like, oh, this will be interesting because there's no way I'm ever on dating sites.
Right.
I think you're stretching on that one, man.
It's
from the
crazy.
social experiment of learning. Now, where it becomes weird is you go on and you write about it.
She says it wasn't about learning. I didn't do it to improve my marriage.
Jesse, do you
I
think
don't
that,
know.
Do you
It's
think
just
that,
a little odd.
Do you think that maybe your perspective won't match the perspective of a married old, like 30-year-old lady or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that I got different opinions and positions than a married woman,
So-
but this isn't a 30-year-old
God.
woman. You know, I bet she's probably 40 or
Okay,
so
well,
when she's
Tucker-
writing
Hold on,
these,
Tucker's
if
comment.
not older.
Tucker's comment. There was a bit of those dating videos on Mad TV.
That's what I was thinking.
Do you remember that? Lowered expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lowered expectations. Oh my God, that was a great bit.
You know,
They were always like the worst person to possibly date. Okay, I forgot
two
about personal
more.
ads. She did make a point on that. There were those personal ads back in the day.
you know,
So
All
there's
right.
2 more to go through.
yeah. So
Do we-
two
do
more,
we?
and, you know,
Okay.
there's dozens and dozens of these articles.
Okay,
so
but
I
I
just
think you're
pulled out
one
a
for
couple that I
think
thought
you're
were-
only 1 for 3 on this one.
I
okay?
don't know.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
What do you guys think at home,
You're
by the
still
way?
not explaining the online dating thing. That still doesn't make
No, but
any
she says it
sense.
literally. She goes,
Go back up.
yeah, go back up. She says, when looking for ways, I
Yeah.
checked out a site because a single friend who was using one was having a hard time finding a match. She discovered, to no surprise, some people lie on their profiles. She received rude propositions and requests, and she read a lot of profiles that made her creep detector go off. You're saying that's bizarre that she...
It's bizarre for sure that she would make a profile because her friend's having a tough time. It doesn't
Wait,
make
did,
sense.
what did she say? She created a profile?
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
No.
No, it did not.
She
Yeah.
read a lot of profiles. When did she write a profile?
Okay. When looking into online dating was one of the best things
This is just like 2
Online
women
dating.
chatting about, oh, look at this guy's profile. This is
Yeah.
so dumb.
No, but when I read, I didn't actually sign up and pay for the service to improve my marriage. It sounds like she's saying I did it for another reason.
Right.
It sounds like she's saying I didn't sign up and pay for the service.
Okay, where is that?
No, but
Show me that.
It's that third line right
I didn't
there.
actually sign up and pay for...
Oh, shit.
Oh,
Sorry.
geez. I didn't actually sign up and pay for the service to improve my marriage. Oh, God, yeah, I could read it both ways. You know, it's just you're reading it one way. Like, I didn't actually sign up and pay for the service to improve my marriage. Or you could read it,
It's very
I didn't actually sign up and pay for the service to improve my marriage. Well, it does. That is weird how she writes at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm still not. I'm not awarding you
Look,
one on
I
this
think
Well,
one.
and that's the thing.
especially-
I don't know
I
how you would check out a site without making a profile anyway.
Especially in today's age where we know so many of our politicians are compromised and unfaithful, I think we should our reflexive reaction should be, what are these people up to? And when you see this type of airing the laundry, it's concerning. You know,
Yeah.
again, and I want these people to be happy. I want them to have a happy life, and maybe she's just, again, sensationalizing things to sell clicks, what have you.
I'm sure that's what
But
it
this is not palatable material that we can use to analyze a potential candidate. If you're throwing this in with who this person is, it's a little questionable.
And is she going to
Right.
continue this if he becomes the
Right.
governor?
Right.
Boy, that would seem really.
This article specifically was back in 2019, 6 years ago.
Yeah, and he ran for the first time in 2020, right? That
I
was
think.
his-
Yeah, I think it was 2020 when he ran for.
Yeah.
There was
So
a
she-
post made.
She was living a private life at that point. I mean, I would probably ask to get it taken down, but yeah, that's a fair point. You know, before then.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that first one did make it sound like he's a monster.
Right.
But
Yeah.
people change.
And
You do need to judge people by who they are today, in my opinion.
Right.
Yep, and let's go ahead and go to the C9. This is another one of the articles that people can see for themselves. This one is titled, "This surprisingly may cause the most conflict in your marriage." And she goes on here. Ever been in the middle of a mild disagreement with your husband when he started acting like you just said, quote, "I drained our bank account and plan on running to police with the UPS guy"? Okay, that's that's extreme, but his reaction seemed excessive for the situation. That's exactly what happened with us last week. Let me explain. I was enjoying my Krispy Kreme maple glazed delight as we drove down the interstate, discussing the pros and cons of a car we were considering buying. It was just a car. I was just asking questions. I was just expressing why I thought it was not a good buy. Then he got ticked. He was clearly overreacting, I thought. I pulled out my phone and started Googling anger management with my sticky fingers, thinking, what is the problem? Okay, so...
And she's actually,
That's
she's
weird.
actually a fairly good writer, too. Like, walking through the stickiness of the hands. But I want to give some credit to Sheila, okay? I actually think she's the talented one in the relationship. Did you ever hear her series with
She's
Alpha
a good
News?
speaker.
Yeah, and her series with Alpha News where she did it was a very similar to like the NPR podcast on education. It was very well produced.
Oh,
What?
I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to the one where Sheila would go to bars and then eat burgers there.
No, that's
I always
not
liked
Sheila. Jeez. Such a hater.
I like that one.
By the way, I don't mind listening to your burger reviews either.
But yeah, she just
Okay,
goes
continue on.
She goes on with that piece, basically saying it's about respect. You got to be able to respect your husband. And that's what's going to make sure that he doesn't go fly off the handle like it sounds like Kendall did.
It does sound like this,
because
that is the problem here. Is as much as I kind of admire her helping other people with marriage, because marriage can be difficult. It does kind of start paint this picture who Kendall is.
Right, that he's easily triggered. That's the way it sounds if you can get so easily ticked by her, unless she's admitting that she was the problem, which she kind of does a little bit in some of these articles by saying that, don't nag your husband. If you want to change your husband, you got to feed him positive feedback and whatnot. So she's got all kinds of tips and tricks to control us men.
Maybe he was hangry and he wanted that Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, maybe.
And as she finished it, that's when his tirade began. Don't know.
Maybe. And
boy, you made a good point though. How much would I hate if my wife wrote a blog about all these little
ridiculous,
things?
Right?
Unless it's a pattern for him,
right?
I have a pretty happy marriage. It's not like I'm always on, right? Like there are days. I don't think I acted very well. Luckily, my wife is very forgiving, and I usually recognize it. I'm very self-reflective on that stuff. So I'll admit. I actually had to admit that this morning. Speaking of which. I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to write a blog about it.
Good man, though.
It wasn't a bad thing. It just was like, I got a little snippy. Okay?
Yeah.
Got a little snippy. Didn't need to be. I think, marriage is really about, this is a quote I heard from a famous hunter who always likes to keep peace. And he goes, marriage is not about justice. It's about peace. And it's like, yeah, you might be right about something, but at the end of the day, you got a commitment with somebody. You need to honor that commitment. And when you have kids, especially when you have kids, peace is better. It's much better for raising children.
Yeah.
I don't really disagree with a lot of messaging. It is interesting, though. This is before he ran for office. I would think you could take it down. It's just interesting we're getting this view into him personally. I would freaking hate that.
Right.
If my fiance was writing stuff like this about me, I would first ask, how much money are you making from this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's enough? Okay.
Want me to be a little crazier?
Yeah. Do you need
I'll give you something to write about.
If she said that, I would first ask, wait, you're my fiance? Did we get proposed?
Yeah. You can keep, we've been proposed.
I don't know.
It's been happening.
I don't know. Well, you are wearing a ring already. That's what happens when you get proposed, right?
I actually lost mine. But it's okay.
It's off. The wedding's off.
It's okay. It was.
There's not a wedding date, is there?
Congrats, Dawson.
Is there talk about a wedding date, Dawson?
So there's a lot of talks in the current works because we've got a lease ending soon. So family stuff. I think that we've talked about family planning in the future. So there's a lot of talks that have to be had.
I'm just shitting on him. His girlfriend's very nice. It's just I'm shitting on him because. Back in our day, you'd get on a knee and you'd propose. I even asked my father-in-law, right? Yep. I went to him first.
You proposed to your father? Oh.
No, you go and you ask for the dad's permission. Yeah. So
I had to do that.
Good.
I know,
but she's mung,
you
so.
You didn't actually get down on a knee and pop the question.
I discussed a dowry.
I can't tell you how traditional I am. All right, moving on. What's the last one you got here, Jesse?
We got one last Sheila Qualls article people can check out for themselves. They can check out that pathos.com and this crosswalk.com because there's quite a few articles out there by Sheila Qualls, and I just picked a few that I found before the show, so I'm sure there's even more out there. But this one is called The Day I Almost Walked Out on My Marriage. So this is another one that every husband is just dying to have their wife write about. So she says...
It is a good, shocking headline, so...
Yeah. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. She says, I was done. Finito. Tapped out. I felt like I was a single parent. When my husband wasn't traveling for work, he was at work. I was already raising the kids and doing life by myself. I felt like he was only a paycheck. It wouldn't make much of a difference if he physically brought it home or sent it to me by the mail. I complained to a girlfriend. She asked me a question which only shocked me and made me mad, but also made put my perspective of my marriage in check. Instead of asking yourself if you should get a divorce, ask yourself if you're putting everything you can into your marriage. Say what? I did everything from the housekeeping to fulfilling my husband's sexual needs.
Oh my God,
and
really?
I'd had enough. I didn't realize that my attitude had
This
shifted.
is out there.
Right.
What is Crosswalk? What is a website? It looks like it's a prayer website. It's
Right.
like
I think it's some kind of Christian website.
Holy
so,
crap. They really do put a lot out there.
And I didn't realize that my attitude had shifted from unconditional love to one of performance and expectations.
What?
My girlfriend told me to put the brakes on and challenged me to ask myself some hard questions before scampering into a long line of failed marriage statistics. And, she goes on and on here. It's, some of the same crap that you see in all these other articles.
What did Kendall do before politics that made him so absent?
Working for Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, I guess so.
That one's interesting,
Yeah.
Once again.
And people can look up those articles, read them all
Is
for
she
themselves.
promoting her business on that too? Like the
go ahead and go back to that article, Dawson. I'm not sure if she did on that one because it was a different website, so I'm not sure. But
she's promoting her blog and her Facebook and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's a former journalist and editor for the U.S. Army's award-winning newspaper, The Cannoneer.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Funny, I was in the Army and I don't know what the Cannoneer is.
A 30-year marriage.
Wasn't it the Military Times? What was that? Yeah, I think.
But in short, these are all things that it's not just Action for Liberty and Truth Hurts that's going to make fun of this stuff. The Democrats are going to weaponize all of that stuff against Kendall Qualls, and in the primary, that stuff is going to be used. So this stuff can't just be hidden. It's out there. It exists. And Kendall Qualls is going to have to stand by the crazy articles that his wife was writing.
Who was it that he's running against again?
Should have signed that.
He's running for governor.
Who's he against? It's Kohler?
Yeah, Kohler.
Yeah, Brad Kohler and Phil Parrish are the only
Phil
people.
Parrish, okay.
And Phil Parrish has been invited on the show, so if people want to see what Phil Parrish has to say, he has been invited. So the invitation's out there. I hope he accepts.
Will you go back to that? What was that Cannoneer? I'm actually curious on this one.
There's no link or anything.
Cannoneer.
Cannoneer. Cannoneer.
What the hell was that?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like it's been a hot minute since we've used cannons in the military. Am I right?
I mean, well, certainly not for
probably in ships.
Certainly not for what do you call it? I'm trying to think of like parades, military parades, and whatever.
Like it would be used there.
I can't think of the terminology.
Ceremony.
Ceremony, yeah, that stuff.
I see.
Cannoneer is a member.
And then it's
of an
loosely
artillery crew.
Yeah, it's loosely like a field artillery guy, which I thought he was a tanker, but I don't remember.
Wasn't that what Walz did?
I wonder if this was like a newspaper on a certain base. I've never heard of that. Cannoneer. Interesting.
What do I think artillery is? Artillery, calling that a cannon.
Cannoneer out of print after
well, I mean,
50
yeah,
years.
he's not wrong on it.
I mean, it works in the same way, but calling.
No, actually, it doesn't really when you think about it.
Oh well.
Because a typical cannon would have had powder external to the round.
Yeah, it looks like Qualls was field artillery.
Walz was definitely
Qualls.
Tim Walz.
No, Qualls.
Oh, Qualls was? Oh, okay. So like Tim Walz, he was a field artillery guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Army likes acronyms, right?
Yeah, but I think the Democrats already have a great slogan that they can use.
The Army likes
Qualls.
acronyms. He was a field artillery.
Yeah, I think the Democrats are also just going to say, drop the Q, keep the walls. Obviously the Democrats are going to manipulate this thing. But yeah, I mean, Kendall Qualls is not the guy who's going to be able to be the strong candidate to Tim Walz. Tim Walz is going to, if you want to take out Tim Walz, you really have to unify the conservative base. And Kendall Qualls is proving that he does not have that in him.
Right. Yep.
Well, that was definitely an interesting road we just went down. Did not see that one coming.
We should do more gossip stuff like that.
Marriage advice.
Yeah, let's do more funny stuff.
It's very fascinating. I'll put it that way. Yeah, it's very fascinating. Yeah, I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. I'm not quite as. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully Parrish accepts the invitation. We need more good candidates, and we need to keep picking apart bad ones. So
yeah,
that's what we did today.
Tucker, they make powder bags, Jake. It's called two-piece ammunition. I guess I don't remember a cannon. What did they? How did they? I thought they just stuffed the end with powder. I don't even remember.
That's what
honestly.
I thought. In the
Is that a
Pirates of
I've never
musket
shot a
in the
cannon.
leaves?
I'll
It's
put
like
it
a
that way.
musket. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a big musket.
yeah. The modern artillery is very accurate. It's way different than a cannon. Like a cannon was like, well, even that I'm kind of speaking on my ass. I think they probably were more accurate than I envision, but certainly not than modern artillery,
Right.
which
No
actually
rifling.
which
They
actually
wouldn't
go
have rifling
miles, right?
In the barrels. They
Yeah,
have
there's rifling in the barrels.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, I was never a field artillery guy, so my experience with artillery is either at like a high level operation of employing them or those rare days like I was on a range or something like that, So I didn't spend time with artillery. If I was artillery, I'd been a forward observer because that's basically an infantryman. 13 Foxtrot, if I remember right. All right. I'm guessing no stolen valor with Qualls. Well, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think
know of
he
any.
carried weapons during war. So, like Tim Walz did, or did not. Let's go to the post show. I want to spill my heart a little bit more on the post show. Are we on locals today? We good?
Yeah, locals
Okay.
is working. I have absolutely no idea what
Let's talk
happened.
about the deep state a
last
little
week.
bit too. All right, is that good? Let's talk about the deep state. And I got a question for you guys, the audience. If you're a premium subscriber, if you're not, go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us on the top, or click on join on Rumble. Thank you to our sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell them, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. And thank you to Alpine Cabtree in St. Cloud, Minnesota. You're just over there looking at me like he's admiring the ads. You guys should start running ads on
We
Truth
might.
Expedition.
Yeah.
It's just funny watching him like, oh, look at him ramble off
I like
those ads.
this. Yeah, it's fun.
It keeps the lights on over here at the studio,
It's good.
Your next Truth Expedition, June 4th, is that right? No, you have one coming up soon.
We have one on the 19th or the 20th, and then we have one June 14th. Yeah.
Okay.
And
14th.
that will be with Sasha Latapova, and then we are going to be scheduling Ryan Dawson as well soon. He's busy in the next couple weeks, but we'll have him on about 3 weeks. So we're excited for Ryan Dawson again.
Cool.
For sure.
Alrighty. We'll be live in the post show in 1 minute. For everyone else, we'll be back on Tuesday. Take care.